Hello world, today I will be explaining the visa run, why it's a bad thing, kind of a dick move, why you shouldn't do it, why you shouldn't take the advice of people who are promoting it, and if you've done it in the past, why you shouldn't continue to do it, and also legal crackdowns on it. So everything about the visa run. Now I know if this video gains any traction that backpackers, bagpackers, expats, sexpats, regular tourists and travelers may take issue with what I'm saying. However, that doesn't make them right. So here is my argument, and it's going to be broken down. So sit back, enjoy, and let's go through it together. So, what is a visa run? A visa run is when you enter a country on a tourist visa or another limited sort of visa, stay the maximum amount of days, then briefly leave, sometimes for just a few hours, and you immediately return to reset the clock. People do this repeatedly to live somewhere indefinitely without ever applying for a residence visa or a required visa, whether it would be a student visa, digital nomad visa. Essentially, you're not a tourist, you're someone who lives there but refuses to go through the proper channels. Now, this originated as an old backpacker trick to get a few extra weeks or sometimes an extra month or two out of your trip. Not the worst thing. We're going to see the monster which it snowballed into. A quick overview before I break down every point is yes, people are using this to stay in the country as pseudo residents. People are using this to work illegally in countries. People are using this because they can get away with it. It is predominantly known in Southeast Asia or South America, and there is a reason for that. Many of these people are exploiting the lax laws that they find in some of these countries because they want to get a lower cost of living or a better quality life. Again, there's nothing wrong seeking a better quality of life, but you got to go through the proper channels. And if any of you think I'm being pedantic, how would you like someone doing this in your home country or where you live? Change a visa run in Southeast Asia to, oh, someone is running around my borders and illegally working in my country. Last I checked, there's a lot of complaints of this back in the Western world. So, problem one with the visa run. First of all, it's dangerous. It is dying out, and thank goodness for that. Immigration officers are now trained to spot visa runners. When they see a passport full of stamps that are just going in, going out, going in, going out, with no real meaningful reason to stay in the country, authorities are now instructed to either deport you, fine you, or even ban you from the country long term. So people who have been doing this for a while kind of had it coming. But if you just heard that, just do a visa run, bro, and you're naive to the system, it's your first time. Maybe you went to Thailand and you're like, oh, I'll just do a visa run to Malaysia and then I'll go back to Thailand. And it's your first time doing that and you didn't know any better. If you're suspected by the Border Patrol, you could be banned from that country for years. You could face fines and you could essentially be caught with your pants down and not know what to do. So that is a real thing. These days, you are definitely running a legal risk. There is tighter enforcement across Southeast Asia and Asia as a whole. Now, for someone who's not just looking out for their own skin, problem number two, ethics. So a tourist visa is for tourism. It's for temporary travel. It's meant for people to visit for a few weeks, possibly a couple months, whatever the duration is, and spend money, contribute to the tourism economy, enjoy themselves along the way. And when that's done, you are expected to leave. When you use a tourist visa or other such visas that are not for their intended purpose to live somewhere full time, you're exploiting a loophole. You know the system wasn't designed for that. Just because you can technically get away with it doesn't make it right. And the thin, flimsy excuse of everyone does it is not a moral defense. It's proof that the loophole is becoming bigger and bigger, and the whole system's about to collapse under it. For those of you who just don't care about the rules and it being a loophole, Maybe you might care about actual people, and that is problem number 3, housing and local impact. There's a reason why locals in many different countries around the world are saying, come to visit, not to stay. And again, a small number of people who stay is normal. Those are the people who might have jobs there, continued working for years, maybe retire in places with retirement visas. There are options for that, but it's about going through the proper channels. Because when you don't, that further contributes to over tourism. And eternal tourists don't stay in hotels often. They rent apartments, usually through Airbnb, short-term rental platforms. Landlords see they can make more money renting to tourists rather than locals, so it drives up the price, and also it pulls the houses off the long-term market. It's going to reduce the supply, and again, makes it much more expensive for the locals and prices them out of their own communities. So, as you can see, it's a dick move. And even if you're like, oh, I'm just one person doing it, that's what everybody thinks. And even if you're trying to do it a little bit better, you're not doing it through Airbnb and short term rentals, and you're doing everything you can to do it in a way that you're not negatively impacting the locals, there's one more thing you could be doing: getting a proper visa. Now, I want to elaborate on something I already touched on. There's just something that's awkward for most people to admit. There's a huge double standard here. In the West, people complain constantly about undocumented immigrants, people who overstay visas or work under the table. Yet many of the same people think nothing of it when they're doing visa runs to Southeast Asia or Latin America. They'll say, I'm teaching English. I'm a digital nomad. As if it makes a difference. It doesn't. Working under the table on a tourist visa is the same, whether you're a laborer or teaching English. It doesn't matter. The skill set doesn't change the ethics. If you wouldn't accept that in your home country, ask yourself, why do you think it's okay somewhere else? Also, the crackdowns are real. It's happening in real time, even in places like Thailand. What used to be considered the visa-run capital of the world is now often limiting to 2 entries per year on the tourist visa. Also, people are being rejected at the borders, and it's not the only place. Every major destination is tightening, maybe limiting visits to 90 days in an 180-day period. China conducted a mass deportation of people working under the table, especially in education. Portugal's got its own thing going on where it's trying to limit the amount of people who can come in. Some of you might think that I'm too heated or coming at it too harsh, or that I just have a stick up my ass. And although I might have something lodged up in there, I do believe in grace for the naive. I want to be clear. If you did a visa run because someone told you it was normal, if you didn't know any better, if you are new to traveling and someone's just like, it's a great idea, I'm not coming after you. The expat community has normalized this for years. And YouTubers, bloggers, retire in Thailand and Vietnam influencers all treat it like a harmless hack. So if you did it once or twice before realizing what it actually means, that's understandable. But now you know, once you have a choice: keep exploiting a loophole or do something else. Now, I acknowledge there are sometimes fringe cases and maybe even some exceptions. So I want to acknowledge that not every border crossing that looks like a visa run is done in bad faith. If you genuinely are backpacking through Southeast Asia and you loop back through a country you already visited, that's different. You're moving through, not settling. Intention is the clear definer here. If you're in a complicated situation, maybe you have a partner in that country and you're trying to figure out the legal pathway, that's a gray area. But if you find yourself stuck in a gray area, you should be actively trying to get out of it. Get onto a proper visa as soon as you can. Don't let the gray area become a permanent address. If it's just a logistical move, then it's fine. If you're planning to settle there and you're constantly in this gray area, you're slowly falling to the black. Now, another issue is greater systemic issues. Allow me to present the China example. These visa runs are not always people being lazy or entitled. In China back in the day, a lot of people worked illegally, not because they were unqualified, although a lot of them were. When people were teaching English, they'd often do it on business visas or tourist visas. And part of the reason was not by choice, it was more systemic. Schools and companies didn't want to do the proper paperwork or get all the work permits. It was easier just to tell the foreign teacher, come as a tourist, we'll sort it out later. And sometimes they never really got around to the sorting it out part. So you had thousands of teachers working in a legal gray area, not because they were trying to exploit the system, some of them were, but because their employers exploited them. That doesn't make it right, but it does mean the responsibility wasn't on the individual. The good news is China cracked down hard. Now it's much more difficult to work illegally here. And that's a good thing. Enforcement forces everyone, employers and employees alike, to do things properly. And I gotta say, back in the days, it attracted a lot more unqualified people, people who had no business doing the job, people who wanted to make a quick buck and bounce. And to be honest, it attracted a lot of unsavory characters. But for those of you who think I'm high and mighty, why does enforcement actually matter? The more these systems are enforced, the better it is for everyone except the exploiters. That means employers or employees. Both sides can exploit, guys. When countries enforce visa rules, it pushes people into proper channels. That means background checks, criminal background checks, income verification, and that matters more than people want to admit. Some people hear crackdown and think, that's just bureaucratic red tape. And here's the reality. It's uncomfortable, but not everybody's entitled to be there, and not everyone should be in this foreign country, and not everyone should be more than a tourist there. Let's take the English teachers, for example. I've met people teaching kids who had no business teaching. I've met people teaching kids who had no business being around kids. Sometimes you hear things that people got in some trouble back home and they came here and they avoided a background check. That is problematic. These people thrive in gray areas. They thrive when laws are not enforced. Would you be okay with that, knowing that they were teaching your kids? When a country enforces its visa laws, it doesn't just collect taxes, it filters out people who shouldn't be there in the first place. That's the truth. There's a mindset I really want to address and call out. Some people say, I'm just teaching English. It's not a real job, or it's fine. It's under the table. It's not hurting anyone. And I've heard that from people who would never accept that logic back home. If you're working without a permit, you're working illegally. That's whether you're teaching English or picking fruit. And if you're working with kids, the stakes are even higher. A proper visa requires a background check for a reason. When you bypass that, you're not just breaking the rules, you're potentially putting vulnerable people at risk. These aren't the only people using this excuse. You get digital nomads who will just try to indefinitely live somewhere. You're not supposed to do that. You either can go work remotely and leave, or you have to get your digital nomad visas. If you guys actually want to retire somewhere, you have to retire. They have visas for this. If you're unable to get that visa or are uneligible for it or not willing to pay for it, it's not for you. You guys got to find a different option. This is an exploit. And no, you're not smarter than everyone. You're just an ass. At the end of the day, we got to admit that this is better for everyone. I know some of you people in these situations might feel like you're being personally attacked, but please remove your ego from it. Proper regulation is simply better for everyone. It's better for the locals who get protected from unpredictable housing markets. They get accountable neighbors. It's better for expats who don't want to be lumped in with, exploiters. It's better for workers who get proper contracts and legal protections instead of being underpaid and having no rights. And it's better for the country. It works wonders for the reputation and helps to deal with that reputation of lawlessness. The only people who lose when it comes to this loophole are the exploiters. And I'm fine with that. And I hope you are too. Now, I wasn't here just to be a negative Nancy this whole time without offering alternatives. And this is what to do instead. Get a proper visa. I know, a shocker, right? Many countries offer a digital nomad visa. Thailand has the DTV, Portugal has the D8, and dozens of other countries followed. If you're retired, look into retirement visas. If you're working, get a work permit. If you're studying, get a proper student visa. A country doesn't offer a visa that fits your situation. Maybe that's a sign you're not supposed to be staying there long term. And if you can't qualify for a proper visa, ask yourself honestly, why is that? The system isn't there to punish you. It's there to ensure that people living in the country are contributing, accountable, and properly vetted. All right, let's wrap this up. I know this video is probably going to be hated if it's seen. A lot of travelers are going to think I'm a gatekeeper, bootlicking authority, whatever you come up with. I'm fine with that. But here's a question I want to put out there if you're still doing visa runs or promoting it. Can you honestly defend it? Not to me, but to the people who matter. If you had to explain to an immigration officer why you've lived in their country for 2 years on tourist stamps, what would you say? Would it just be, I like your country, bro? If you had to explain to a local why you're renting an apartment they can no longer afford, what would you say? The countries closing these loopholes aren't being unfair. They're doing exactly what any country would do. If you wouldn't accept this behavior in your home country, don't accept it somewhere else. Please be part of the solution.